Now, I would like to introduce Professor Mark Howard, the director of the Georgetown Prison and Justice Initiative and a professor of government and law. Joining Professor Howard is Marty Tancliffe, a Peter P. Mullen Distinguished Visiting Professor, as well as a criminal defense attorney. Both Professor Howard and Professor Tancliffe have dedicated their careers to advancing reforms in the criminal legal system and serving as champions for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people. Together, Professor Howard and Tancliffe co-teach the Making an Exoneree course at Georgetown, where undergraduate students reinvestigate cases and advocate for the freedom of wrongfully convicted people through documentary filmmaking and online advocacy efforts. Please welcome Professor Howard and Tancliffe.
Thank you so much, Zan and Amelia. Thank you all for coming to this special event that we have here. I want you all to think for a second that just a few years ago, when we first heard the names Keith Washington and Eric Riddick, they were sitting in a prison cell for crimes that they didn't commit. And they reached out to us because they'd heard about Georgetown, they'd heard about the Making an Exoneree program, and wanted to see if our students could look into their cases and reinvestigate and potentially find new facts and start a campaign that could eventually lead to their innocence and exoneration. And here we are, welcoming them to the hilltop. So big round of applause, Eric Riddick and Keith Washington. And we're so honored also to have their family and friends and supporters with us because they've been a crucial part of that journey. And they say, there's this expression, the family does the time too. And when you add that to a wrongful conviction case, it's really brutal on the family and they've suffered so much. And so I just want to acknowledge everything they've been through, but also the celebration of being able to see them here tonight as well. And of course, we're also going to be hearing from the amazing students who worked so hard on their cases, who gave everything they had to reinvestigate, to find the truth, and to tell the world about what really happened and to help bring them home. And what they did is truly extraordinary. And we have so many other students who worked on our other cases, and I don't say that in any way to bring them down because they've worked just as hard, and there's some of them who are here in this room, and we hope to have this kind of a celebration for those cases as well. But for these 5 who are here in person and 1 who'll be joining from London on Zoom, what you've done is truly extraordinary.
Tonight, you're going to learn about these 2 amazing men, their stories, and hear from the Georgetown students who dedicated a lot of time working on their cases. They advocated for their freedom, and we are so grateful for them, and I know Eric and Keith are as well. For me, this was a very critical moment because I was wrongfully convicted and served almost 18 years in prison for crimes I didn't commit myself. So for Mark and I to start teaching this class in 2018, after I'd been coming to the hilltop for probably about 10 years, was really an amazing day. That in 2018, in January, I forget exactly what day it was, but we started on this journey, and some people doubted us. Some people said that this was experimental, it wasn't going to work, we couldn't do this. But 4 months after the end of our first semester, we walked Valentino Dixon out of prison after he had been incarcerated in New York State for 27 years. Imagine that, 27 years, you were in prison for a crime you didn't commit. Most of you in this room probably aren't 27 years old. So just think about how long that is. And I remember the famous Barry Scheck spoke to our class and he said, there's nowhere up but up from here. You had one success story after another. And not too long ago, Eric Riddick walked out, and shortly after that, Keith Washington walked out. We welcome Eric and Keith to the stage.
Wow. What a moment. I'll let Marty have a seat here. These are the moments we dream of in our class. And now I want to ask you both, starting with Eric, what is it like here to be at Georgetown University when you heard this name so often from a prison cell and you met with the students and you knew they were working to help get you home? What's it like to be here today?
You know, it's amazing. It's on. Yeah, it's amazing. It's testimony to the human spirit. You know, when people come together and fight the fights that's worthy of fighting, you know, and this is testimony. You know, Georgetown University is continuing a long legacy of freedom fighters. You know, the universities have always been at the core of change, you know, when you look back in history. So I love Georgetown. Georgetown have become an extended family of mine, the students, the professors, you know, this is family. I always say that Marty and Mark is my brothers from another mother, you know, and I mean that.
So Keith, this is the first time you've actually had an opportunity to meet the students in person because of COVID. What's it like for you?
Well, I'll tell you, it's been very, very exciting. I met Celine, I met Trevor. I hadn't met Trevor, I met Josh, and I met Celine walking up about 20 minutes ago. And
Where did she fly in from?
she flew in from France, you know. And so their efforts, their work, their sacrifice, their commitment to my case, right, to my family, to the rule of law, and for justice, I could never repay that. I could never repay what students here, the professors here have done as it relates to just standing up for what is right. And in your life, you're going to come into situations where there's the expedient way to go along with what's wrong, and there's a difficult way to do what is right. And I challenge you to do what is right. I challenge you to fight for what you believe. I challenge you to follow your heart. I challenge you to stand for freedom and justice. And so when you do that, you can never lose.
Yeah, beautiful. So we're coming up on a year, just about. Eric, it was late May 2021. And for Keith, it was in June 2021. Talk a little bit about what the transition is like. It's a huge adjustment, obviously, leaving a prison cell, leaving a prison environment, coming into freedom. The world moves fast. Technology has changed a lot. Talk about what freedom tastes like.
Freedom tastes good. Right. But you know, the situation that we came through, being wrongly convicted, right? We look at it, you know, you can look at it like a furnace. It's going to do one or two things. It's either going to burn you up, or it's going to purify you to a degree. You know, it's either going to make you or break you. And you know, the work that we're doing, the way we adjusting today, is based on what we went through. You know, we didn't allow it to break us. And, you know, we just turned that obstacle into opportunity to develop ourselves. So today, you know, the transition is difficult. You know, it's like stepping out of the Stone Age. You know, I went to prison in 1991, end of 91. And it was a very different time. You know, one of the main things that have blown my mind is the 24 hours in a day. You know, I wake up in the morning, 5 o'clock, and I sneeze, and then it's 12 o'clock at night. You know? But it's been great. You know, I'm connected to a network of family and friends, and that have made it easy for me. You know, and when I say family and friends, you know, again, Georgetown is my extended family. You know, Mr. Keith Washington is my extended family based on our struggles that we went through. You know, we bonded based on our struggles. So, but you know, it's difficult. But again, when you connect it to a network of people that care, it makes it easy.
Keith, this is the first time you've met Eric, I believe. What's it like to meet Eric, and be on the stage with him, and actually also meet the students that worked on his case.
Well, I tell you, listen, a guy like Eric, there are, not to diminish Eric, but there are a lot of people in prison with the spirit of Eric, right? And those people wake up every day fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their families. They're fighting to become free men again, free women again. They're fighting to be unshackled and unchained. They're fighting for what we call the American ideals of truth and justice in the so-called American way. And some people lose faith. You can never lose faith. You can never lose hope. And when you do that, you're going to win. You have to believe that. And people at Georgetown, students, faculty, professors, especially Marty and Mark, right? They're like the tip of the spear. They're cutting through the fortified fences that are so-called the metaphor for wrongful convictions. And they're trying to cut a hole in that fence for free men and women to walk through. They're trying to breach that fence. And so people like Eric, people like myself, and those that you've never seen, never heard of, or will never know, are counting on students like you to fight for them. Because young people in this country have always been at the forefront of change throughout its history. Young people who are idealists, who fundamentally believe that we can do better. It is the older people who then follow the young people when they see what you're doing. So I challenge you, young people, be strong, be courageous, be diligent, be what your parents would be proud of. All right?
Well, that's beautifully put, Keith. And I know I personally, and I'm sure many people here, want to hear from some of those young people who did such extraordinary work. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to transition to telling you a little bit more, especially for those who don't know about the story, starting with Keith's story first. We're going to see the documentary that the students made about Keith's case, and then we're going to have the students come up, and we'll do the same afterwards for Eric's case. And I just want you to know, for the documentary you're about to see about Keith's case, which is so utterly bizarre and horrific in terms of what took place in his own home, I want you to understand that that documentary was viewed and was cited by the prosecutor who agreed to reduce his sentence, and by the judge at the end of the sentencing that let Keith free, and closed it by saying, "Georgetown folks, keep up the great work." And this, you're about to see that great work.
This is my daughter, Kayla. She's a 19-year-old student and my sunshine.
This is my mom. Her name is Stacy. I guess I would call her my rock. When I was a kid, I would call him my best friend. We did everything together. He played baseball, so we went to his game at night. We would run around the house, and I would be on his back, and we'd be chasing my mom, or I'd be in my mom's arms, and he'd be chasing us. He was my best friend, pretty much.
You just never know how, in an instant, your entire life changes. Like that.
2 Marlowe furniture delivery men were shot. One of them died while dropping off bed rails. It happened in January 2007 at the Accokeek home of Prince George's County Police Corporal Keith Washington. He was Deputy Director of Homeland Security. Upstairs, 3 to 5 shots were fired. 22-year-old Brandon Clark died. His partner and cousin, Robert White, was critically wounded, but later testified against Washington at his trial, saying an argument resulted in an unprovoked shooting. Washington was convicted in 2008 of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of first-degree assault and use of a handgun. He was sentenced to and is serving a 45-year prison sentence.
My dad shouldn't be in prison. He protected his family.
This call is from
Keith Washington,
an inmate at a Maryland Correctional Facility.
I look down the hallway, and White is sticking his head out of Caleb's bedroom. And when I see him, I say, "Hey, what are you doing in there? Come out of there." Clark is like, he said something, And before I knew it, the guy hit me in the back of the head. And then White punched me from the front. I'm thinking right now, this is how people get killed in their own home. White's on one side, Clark's on the other side. He kicked my arm so hard as I was ducked down, like in a squatting position, covering up my head, that it broke my watch and knocked my watch off my wrist. Now it's life or death. And I know that my wife is there, my 6-year-old daughter is there. When I pull my gun, I'm squatted down. They're on top of me, 12 inches from me.
As I'm coming down the hallway, I'm looking up. I get here, I go up to come, I think, okay, they're beating him, these two guys. He's in the middle, they're on either side of him. And I think, oh my God, I need to help him. And I start to go up, and then I think, no, I need to get her out of here. So I step back, turn, and as I'm coming back this way, that's when I hear the shots. And then I just go back through here, grab her, and then grab the phone, and then go out the garage door. They were very large, two very large men, and Keith was not a large guy. If they had gotten his weapon, I think they would have killed him. They may have killed him anyway. They were way bigger than he was. He was unable to fight back. He was unable to run. There was just no way for him to get away from them. If he had not had his gun on him that night, it's very possible that he could have been killed.
Washington's account placed them in very close proximity, including that one was on each side of him, beating him as he was crouched down. Mr. White's account placed them at some significant distance from Mr. Washington when he started shooting at them. The ballistics laboratory testing demonstrated that there was some gunpowder residue that was deposited on the entrance wound. And in fact, you really cannot posit that kind of gunpowder residue from a distant gunshot.
Keith's description of where the shots were fired matches where the shell casings were located. None of Robert White's story lines up with the evidence. He has Keith in the master bedroom doorway firing the shots. There are no shell casings found there. When they did the ballistics check and they did the gun residue test, and they found at the tip of the barrel was a distance of like 3 to 12 inches, which is more consistent with them being right up on Keith when that shot was fired.
He had swelling underneath his eyes and swelling in the lips. And from my experience, yes, he was hit more than once.
Did he look like he had been in a fight?
Yes.
Once he was being assaulted, then he had every right to use lethal force, particularly in his home, since his wife and daughter were downstairs, in order to defend himself. Washington being in jail is just a travesty.
Keith should not be sitting in jail for 40 some odd years of his life. I've handled a number of homicide investigations where individuals who committed murders have not received half that time. I also believe that there were some issues with regards to the way the state's attorney's office conducted themselves. And the fact that this did have some political undertones for their office as well. Mr. Wright, had definitely had political aspirations as well during that particular point in time.
This issue's been around for a long time. PG County has had a lot of reporting done on it over the years. And I can see even back then where this could have been a issue that a politically minded prosecutor might want to jump on.
I think it became pretty clear that the prosecutor had an axe to grind. The prosecutor was looking to make some perhaps political hay to further their own career.
He's been in prison for 12 years.
I guess in the beginning I tried to shield her from all of this craziness. So try not to talk about it a lot, and just try to let her have a childhood, really.
When I was younger, I was in Girl Scouts, so they'd be like daddy-daughter dances, and I wouldn't go because there's no one to take me. He didn't see me at graduation. He didn't, see me at prom.
He is probably one of the most kind-hearted people. He was a police officer so that he could make a difference. Kayla said to me, one night, not long after he was sentenced, we told the truth. And Dad still didn't come home. What do we do now? What do you say to that? That kind of sums it up for me. What do we do now? And I think I said something like, we keep fighting until he comes home. And so here we are, still fighting.
Before I invite Celine, Josh, and Keith to the stage, I just want everyone to realize that the students did this during the heart of COVID. And they deserve a round of applause because doing these investigations at this time, I would like to invite Celine Bordeaux, Josh Rosen, and Trevor O'Connor will be joining us Zoom from England. And Keith, please join us on stage. How are you? Good. Trevor, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can. So what time is it there?
It is currently 30 past midnight, but I'm still going strong.
I'm sure you wouldn't have missed this for the world, but where you are is very important. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the stage. Keith, how would you say this documenting the students' work impacted your case?
Listen, without this documentary, can you hear me? Without this documentary, my road to freedom would have been so much more difficult. Without this documentary and the participation of Georgetown, the participation of the students, Trevor, Josh, Celine, right? They did an outstanding job of bringing the truth to light. My wife and I had been fighting for 12 years for people to see the evidence. And when they got involved, when the university got involved, then the tide turned. Let me say, the tremendous social responsibility that Georgetown has and its power and its influence, don't underestimate it. This university, this program has done great things. These students, these professors have done great things. They are the true warriors for freedom and justice. So without them, we would still be on the battlefield. There's no doubt in my mind. My wife and I would still be fighting, and I would still be sitting in a prison cell. So there's nothing I could ever do to repay them. Nothing. They are family. They will always be family. And we will forever be in your debt as a university, and they will forever be in our debt as family. So Marty, that's it. Words can't describe what they mean to us. They mean my very life. They mean my daughter's happiness. They mean my grandson's happiness. They mean my wife's happiness. And so that can never be repaid. And I thank you.
This is a question for Celine, Josh, or Trevor. Either one, any one of you can answer. All of you can answer it. What was it like investigating Keith's case?
Hard, I guess. I think our expectations. So, I first became interested in this kind of work when I went to the events when Valentino Dixon spoke to Georgetown after he was released, due to the work that Georgetown students had done for them. And I came into the class kind of thinking, it's not that hard. Like, you do a little work, just meet with the state's attorney, and he'll be out in 4 months tops. Obviously, that was very wrong. You realize once you get started, just the scope of the work. So many people to talk to, so much evidence to gather. Some people are unwilling to talk to you. Keith had some lawyers at the time, and they were in conversations with the state's attorney at the time. And due to ongoing conversations, they didn't want us to speak to the state's attorney, rightfully so. But that makes it harder to, I guess, do the work that we're trying to do. But it's a fulfilling type of work that I haven't been able to match in any other course. I've been working for a year and a half now. Nothing like that. Nothing matches this. So it was challenging. It's hard, but absolutely worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Also with what you said with the high expectations that we had at the beginning. We were like thinking that, well, this class is supposed to be only for a semester. So at the end of the semester, everything should be done and everybody's happy. But well, of course not. So yeah, it was pretty hard. Also, it was like a human experience for me, also emotionally speaking, because I think that your family looks a little bit like my family. So it was a little bit hard some days, but it's also what I think made me want to, fight for you guys. So it was important.
Trevor, you want to?
Sure. I think getting up against the kind of bureaucratic backlog of the court system was kind of a reality check for a lot of us. Just as people who hope to believe in speedy justice, it was definitely a lot of delays in the system and filings and this and that. That goes to show that justice isn't always speedy. I think also, as Celine mentioned, the emotional connection was probably one of the most rewarding aspects and challenging aspects of working on the case. I think when we went and met Stacy for the first time, and Kayla, that was definitely what really made this case come alive, and realized that these are actual people, actual stories, and it's not just the words we were reading on the pages at that time, but these are people whose lives have been completely upended. So I think those were the two main takeaways that I got from this.
Keith's case was a little more complex and not the normal case that we would generally take on, but it was a case that every one of us felt very passionate about. We felt with our hearts and our souls that Keith did not belong in prison, which created a little more difficulty, and so did COVID. How did you guys approach it, knowing that this case was a little bit different?
I actually think it excited me. I appreciated the nuance, and I also appreciated all of the physical evidence that we were provided, immediately upon starting. Right. So when we were choosing cases, Keith had already spoken with people at Georgetown and provided a mountain of physical evidence, and to me, that was the most compelling thing. Right, looking at that and just realizing, like, oh my God, like this, it can't be right. Right. I mean, from the large sentence to all the physical evidence that points to the altercation, all of that just led me to the conclusion that it was worth picking up.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think it's very important also that we talk about the fact that we are here talking about our work, and also obviously Keith's family also has been working a lot on this. But Keith, you've been your best friend from the beginning. You've done the hardest job and the greatest job here. You believed in yourself so that we can believe in you, and I think everything that you've done is very impressive. So you should also be very proud of yourself.
I would say the 45-year sentence was definitely a key motivator, regardless of some of the other facts of the case. Just the idea that this kind of situation would lead to someone being imprisoned for up to 45 years just kind of seems to be a stain on our criminal justice system. If we're truly trying to create a better society, locking people away for that long isn't, a solution. So I think that was a key motivator for a lot of our work.
Obviously, I mentioned it before, but you guys did this case during COVID. What were the challenges you faced to really dig into it, document it, investigate it?
Sure. So, we started the case actually at Georgetown in 2020, January to late February, I guess. We had conducted some interviews. We had been to, we had met Stacy and Kayla. We had been to their home, which was the home where the incident occurred. But then when COVID changed, we had all these interviews planned. We were planning, I think, a trip to come visit you, right? I mean, he was in a Maryland correctional facility, not that far away from Georgetown. So we never got to meet you until, an hour ago. So those kind of challenges. And then I think from a more practical standpoint, coordinating, I guess, the production of the documentary itself, right? Trevor did a fantastic job. Trevor was our main production guy, but we all went through compiled clips. We're on Zoom calls talking with each other, and all of that, with the backdrop of a very challenging global situation. So it was interesting for sure. But
yeah, like you said, so everybody had to go back home and the world was collapsing. We didn't know what was happening. We were also very worried for you because we were worried for everybody, but even more because you were incarcerated. And yeah, we've been working together remotely. I went back to France, so I had the time difference that was not helping. But yeah, Trevor has been fantastic. And yeah, I think it worked pretty well.
So thankfully, I think we got a lot of the filming, some of the main filming before COVID really, let loose on the world. But there was definitely certain aspects that, could have been like more improved, or if we had, new kind of videos to include. But at the end of the day, it's the main message, I think, would have been just as strong. It would have come through whichever video clips or statements we had. I think it was just such a compelling case that, even with the logistical nightmare of doing editing over Zoom and things like that, we were able to still produce a quality product.
I want everyone to realize that, some of the students here know this, but our students do this work in one semester. One semester, they come to class 1 day a week for a 5-hour class, but they probably put in anywhere to 20 to 30 hours a week when the heart of it gets to it. And I think they need to be recognized for that, because this is And Celine, if you don't mind, do you remember what you said kind of to pass on for future making exoneree students about at the end of the semester? Do you remember kind of, you can just summarize it, because I think it's very important for people to understand how you walked away feeling, but understand the impact it had.
So on May 2020, I felt very bad because I had to go back home, and I know that you were still in prison. And I felt like the only thing that I did was giving hope to someone, but it didn't work out. So I felt very bad about it. Like I failed somewhere. So it was a little bit, and I remember Mark and Marty were very helpful also about that. You're also doing a great job. But
we have a little experience.
But yeah, after that, well, things turned out better eventually, and we were not really expecting that, to be honest. And we kept on working also. So I realized that, like I said to you, the next Making an Exoneree generation, patience is key, and also you never know how things can eventually like turn out well, and how you work, like everything that you're doing today can change someone's lives tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, or 2 years after that. So I remember I said something like, just remember that it's not because something is not a success that you failed or that it is a failure. you never know. You just have to keep on fighting, and maybe someday, well, it will be a success.
I mean, it's one of the things we try to instill in our students, that success is not defined by the ultimate outcome. It's really defined about how much effort you put into it. Keith, what do you have to say to the future students of making an Exoneree that could impact the work that they're doing?
I would tell you, follow your heart, right? If you follow your heart, you will always win. What's more, you will never lose. That whatever you're passionate about, whatever it is, take that passion and apply it for the good of all mankind. Stand up for what you believe. Be truthful, have integrity, be intelligent, be strong-willed and determined. Don't give up. Never give up. We used to have a saying in the Army. If we were facing insurmountable odds and someone was injured, wounded, hurt, our only response was, can you fight? Because if you can fight, you can win. And you will heal. You will heal. Never give up, ladies and gentlemen. Young people, your future is ahead of you. This world is waiting on you. Go out and do something outstanding for humankind, mankind, for your family. Make us proud. Make us proud. We're watching you. Make us proud. Okay?
Just one quick thing, Josh, just so you know, your expectation of 4 months is not so bad. When Steve Brogg and Barry Pollard took my case on in 1995, they told the firm, oh, a year, 2 years tops. I didn't get out to 2007, so they had a lot to explain to do that firm. Thank you all. And now we're going to turn it over to Team Riddick, and we're going to start by showing this amazing documentary.
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Chester. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
My name is Eric Riddick. I am an innocent man who have been incarcerated for approximately 27 years and around 5 months for a crime that I'm completely innocent of. Before my incarceration, I grew up in Southwest Philadelphia. I'm a son of Miss Christine Riddick and Fayard Riddick. My father passed away in 1992, September 3rd. My parents have always been community activists in the Southwest Philadelphia region, specifically 58th Street. November 6, 1991 is the night that William Thomas Catlett lost his life. And subsequently, I was unjustly arrested and charged and unduly and unjustly convicted of that killing, the killing of William Catlett.
It was the testimony of a single eyewitness that landed Riddick in prison, Sean Stevenson, who told police he saw Riddick fire a rifle from an elevated fire escape.
I, Sean Stevenson, falsely accused Eric Riddick of the murder of William Catlett that took place on November 6, 1991. I didn't see Eric Riddick shoot, kill, or kill anyone, and I am relieved to relieve my conscience on this matter. I'm also willing to do whatever it takes to clear Eric Riddick of a crime to my knowledge that he had no parts of. And then he says, I made these fabricated allegations against Eric Riddick because I was pressured by some of the deceased friends, mainly a male by the name of Brian Yates. In fact, Brian Yates took me down to the homicide division on November 7th, 1991, when I made these false statements against Mr. Riddick. I didn't want to come to court and lie on the stand, but I was pressured by District Attorney Mr. Williams.
But Riddick claimed he was 2 blocks away with a few friends at the time of the killing.
It was early in the evening. We was hanging out, sitting on the steps.
Justine Dawson and Lewis Jordan backed his story.
I was sitting right here. Eric was like right over here.
But Riddick's alibi witnesses were never called to testify. He says his court-appointed attorney, who declined to comment to us, opted not to put on a defense.
In Eric's case, all the evidence shows that he was innocent. He was convicted solely on the basis of one, a so-called eyewitness, who has now recanted his testimony. So you would think that's all you need. You know, the key witness has recanted his testimony. There's other evidence that shows that he's innocent. If the criminal justice system is supposed to be about justice, then justice would demand that he be immediately released.
The most important thing is the forensic proof. That is science. That's undeniable. And the proof was that there were two different caliber of bullets, and they did not pass through the deceased body from an upward to downward trajectory. They were horizontal or upward in trajectory, which is completely the opposite of the testimony. And then the court hires a forensic expert years later, whose opinion is Eric Riddick did not, fire the weapons that killed the deceased.
I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer, but I have common sense, and I can comprehend very well. So if something, this is the facts, not my facts or my son's fact. This is the facts based on ballistic report, medical examiner's report, and forensic report.
And that's really the issue. Is there evidence that he's guilty? The answer is no. Whatever evidence was presented is refuted, both in terms of affidavits, eyewitness recanting, and science.
The world needs to know that you got a man that's incarcerated, can do a lot of good.
Like, he helps me work through certain things that, made me who I am. Like, I went through a hell before I met him, while he's going through a hell, and it just brought us together where we made our own paradise. Overall, everything, you here and I'm here, so that's it. Our wedding day, although it took place in a prison, our vows, I can't go into it, but the things that I said to him and the things that he said to me really touched the heart. And you don't realize how much you love a person until, I guess, that day.
Let me just say this. Once he's released, there's no telling what we might do. Whatever we do, it's going to be big. It's going to be really big.
I am confident that Eric Riddick is not guilty based on the evidence and should be released immediately.
Eric Riddick is an innocent man.
Eric is innocent.
Eric Riddick is an innocent man, and we're not going to stop until we can get him released.
So before I ask the students to come up, I want to give a little bit of a backstory as to how we heard about this case, because it was a very unusual situation. We were hosting an event with the Lecture Fund with the rapper Meek Mill. Huge event, a lot of excitement. Meek showed up like an hour and a half late, like it was a concert. And we're backstage about to get introduced, and I'm going to be interviewing him. And they're introducing me, the student from the Lecture Fund's introducing me and says, Mark Howard, who played a role in Valentino Dixon's exoneration after 27 years of being wrongfully convicted. And we're about to go on, and Meek turns to me and he goes, wait, you helped the dude get out of prison after 27 years who's innocent? I got a friend who's been in prison 27 years who's innocent. And I said, whoa, send me his contact information. Let's look into it. That friend, Eric Riddick. Please welcome to the stage along with the three amazing students who made it happen. So I'm going to start with you, Eric, and then I'm going to let the students maybe take over some of the conversation because you did get to know each other, spent a lot of time together in prison, and then also, of course, at Eric's release, which was extraordinary in May 28th, 2021. So, Eric, could you talk a little bit about Meek and that connection that you had with him? I mean, that's a little unusual. And also, you know, the way it led us together to Georgetown.
On the bottom. It's all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. It's definitely a very unique situation. When Robert Meek Mill went to prison unjustly regarding his probation, they sent him to the institution where I was at. He came on the unit where I was at. We became friends. I mentored him for those 5 months he was in prison. And he looked.
I heard you played a lot of ping pong too.
Yeah, and for the record, I used to kick his butt in ping pong. He'll say that he beat me, but I think I'm up a couple games. But you know, he gave me his word once he looked into my case that he was going to help me out, and he kept his word. You know, when a helicopter came and got him when he was released, he told a friend of ours, another one of my brothers from another mother, Dan Slepian from NBC.
Yeah,
right?
NBC.
From NBC. He was on a helicopter with Meek, and Meek told him basically he wanted him to come inside, meet me, and look into my case. And Dan Slepian came in. We became good friends. But he came home and he met Mark and the Georgetown family, and you know he brought my case to them, and the Georgetown family jumped on the case, and you know I'm here now. You know I'm here.
So let's, Eric, say a little bit about your feelings about the students, and then I want the students to talk about in the other direction.
You know, the students, I look at them as my brothers and sisters, like they my little brother and my little sisters. You know, they did an amazing job. They hit the ground running, and I'm saying, you know, with a level of purity, like untainted. You know, there's a lot of toxic politics when it comes to criminal justice. You know, and when you coming from a pure standpoint, right, like the students did, their vision was so clear. They wasn't tainted by the politics or the defects in the criminal justice system. They wasn't tainted. So they seen the obvious. You know, they seen all the evidence of innocence. But let me say this, you know, I live up Southwest Philadelphia in a very dangerous area. The students went out in this area, I mean, at nighttime, all right? With Alex, you had a measuring stick going up and down the block, you know, and it's a very dangerous area. This is a level of commitment, you know, and you know, I'm always love them, you know, as they are my family. But you know, they come up and see me when they came and visit me. You know, they inspired me. You know, it's just like Keith said, it's really no words. It's really no words. But their advocacy and them fighting for my freedom is testimony that the power is truly with the people. You know, they possess the courage, you know, to challenge the institution that's supposed to serve the people. You know, that's what it's all about. That's how change comes. because, you know, you're gonna have institutions that's gonna go rogue, you know, but again, the power always lies with the people to be bold enough to challenge those institutions to live up to the standards that they're supposed to be functioning in. And that's what the students did in my case, you know, and I'm gonna always love them for that.
Taylor, Kendall, Alex,
And start.
your thoughts.
I think so. Before we got involved, Eric and his family have been involved in this for I guess over 20 years at that point that we had joined the efforts, and so I think there was like a lot to learn from them naturally from just being in this fighting for his advocacy for this long. And so I think that's one thing I left the experience from, just appreciating how much I learned from you and from your family. I also want to give them a shout out. We have his mom, wife, brother, and aunt here tonight. But yeah, but like on a very practical level, I remember when we first met, you had that really bad cold, and you gave me, and this is way pre-COVID, so it wasn't that thankfully, but like sent me home to like go munch on some garlic to fix it, and it worked. But also like on a principle level, just learned so much from you, just like your steadfastness through this whole process, this almost 30 years of knowing you were innocent, going up against attorneys and the system was telling you were guilty for this, even though the facts pointed the other direction. You knew that, your family knew that. But y'all remain steadfast in that. And I think that's something I took from this experience, and when facing adversity and facing corrupt systems, seemingly unchanging systems, and then how important it is to be steadfast and be in community in that steadfastness. So I appreciate that.
Sure, I'll jump in. This is honestly one of my favorite stories to tell anyone who ever asked me about my experience with Eric. When we first got involved in the case, I personally was a junior, and I know these guys were seniors, but regardless, I had zero experience when it came to anything with law. I was an undergraduate at Georgetown studying government, didn't have a plan to be a lawyer, still not a lawyer now, but still, it obviously, the knowledge that people were sitting in prison who were wrongfully convicted of a crime obviously didn't sit well with me. And when I know people hear about it, doesn't sit well with them either. But regardless, when we went for the first time to visit Eric in prison, I had never been to a jail or prison before. But when I sat down and was obviously uncomfortable with the, sitting there waiting for Eric comes out with the biggest smile on his face in the entire world and looks at all of us and gives us these bear hugs. And it's like you've known the guy for your entire life. So that connection immediately, just knowing how Eric kind of embraced us with open arms after he had obviously received promises from people saying that they're going to help, or politicians that are going to help. We played obviously a very small role in the 29-year fight for Eric's innocence, but still being able to be a part of that journey for the last few years. Obviously for myself, and I know for my teammates, has been one of our greatest life experiences, and it's something that we'll never forget for sure.
Yeah. Hello. Okay, I think it works. Okay. Yeah. Wow. This is better. Yeah. I don't even know where to begin. I think this experience is definitely the most meaningful experience I've had in my life to date. It's only been 25 years. So, I mean, doesn't really compare to the many years. It doesn't really compare to the many years like Keith and Eric combined that you guys spent wrongfully convicted. But we were presented with so much evidence in the beginning, and every single thing that we saw pointed towards innocence. And I think that was what was so hard for us to wrap our minds around in the beginning. There were even judges, as you saw in the documentary, who had said that this man is likely innocent, but what can we do? It was an untimely filing. And just to hear the individuals that you elect or that are there to represent you or to advocate on your behalf, and hear them say those things and just be okay with people who are clearly innocent behind bars, that was something that motivated me, and I think also motivated Alex and Kendall in our fights and in this effort. everyone already knows this and they can clearly see this, but Eric is just an amazing person. Every single member of his family is incredibly beautiful and special. And as much as we tried to support them, I think they also supported us, and it was definitely a mutually beneficial relationship. So I just can't thank the Making an Exoneree program enough for just introducing us to this line of work, and also just giving us, the opportunity to work with Eric and meet Eric, and also learn an incredible amount from Eric and his family. And I'm so happy to be here today after graduating nearly 3 years ago. I personally didn't ever think that we were going to get to this moment. There's a lot more that we can talk about definitely during the session or later, but it was definitely an uphill battle. And we had many signs pointing in a direction of it not working out in Eric's favor. So just to be here today and celebrating this with Eric is just really beautiful for us.
I want to highlight what the students did. You saw at the end of the documentary, it said over 58,000 signatures. That eventually surpassed 500,000. And that's a petition started by 3 undergraduate Georgetown students on their own. And you see every day their petitions getting spread around, right? And somehow it caught fire, and it was extraordinary. And so they deserve a lot of credit for that. They brought this case to the attention of the world. And then the other thing that I'd like to actually ask them to talk about a little bit about this moment, which was that they were asked on very short notice to give the highest stakes presentation that any student could ever imagine. This has nothing to do with a classroom speech or something like that. They were asked to speak on Eric's behalf in front of the Conviction Integrity Unit of Philadelphia, Larry Krasner's office. With Eric's life on the line, they'd prepared an extraordinary presentation, and then they learned on quite short notice that they had to deliver it themselves as students. And if you could talk a little bit about what you did and how that went.
I'll just add to Mark's description. I think maybe 30 minutes to an hour before the DA's office went over like some incriminating evidence that we hadn't seen before, that the lawyers hadn't seen before. So it's definitely, firstly, I think the simple word is to say chaotic for sure. But yes, it was in front of 10 district attorneys in the Philadelphia Conviction Integrity Unit. And I think because we had so rigorously prepared up until that point and reviewing over like the 1,000 of case files and working with Emeka, Eric's lawyer at the time, and talking with his family, and talking with Eric, the case, that we did have a understanding of the facts, but it was being thrown in the situation and getting peppered with questions from the DA's office with theories about how Eric might have been involved, or what if he was, I think we may have, I maybe misremembered it, like if he was in a helicopter, if he was like shooting upside down, these like very like impossible and like ridiculous theories that we were being asked to refute in front of 10 district attorneys, people who actually have law degrees, people who've been practicing for some number of years, that represent the government, represent the state, and we are like juniors and seniors respectively, and undergraduate with our various degrees. Again, not allowed to take Alex's point, presenting that I'm trying to talk about.
So that was a very good way of explaining it. It was extremely daunting. Just to give you the backstory, we had gone into that weekend, which was obviously critical for Eric's case. And the idea was that we, since we combed over thousands and thousands of pages of court paperwork, essentially, on Eric's case, the three of us became very well versed, obviously, with all details surrounding Eric's case. But we prepared the presentation for Eric's lawyer and investigator, I would say. And the plan was that they were going to present to the DA's office. So luckily, when we got the call an hour and a half before the meeting that we were actually going to present the entire presentation that we had prepared, yeah, we were luckily ready. But again, if you can imagine, can't kind of push that undergraduate feeling enough that when you get that call, it's not like, are presenting a class project. You're presenting on behalf of someone's life. The biggest thing is that it's not, you might not get an A, B, C, D. I don't know how farther down Georgetown goes, but again, someone's life was essentially in your hands, and you're trying to show the DA's office why Eric should be released. And obviously that sense and weight on all of us, was extraordinarily heavy. And what was so frustrating was us staying there and giving, and I'll say, doing an amazing job, right, in front of the DA's office, but then having them, thank you. regardless, what I think we obviously gave a good presentation, but the point of the story is that the DA's office then started firing off, as Kendall said, these unbelievable kind of counterpoints, right? They were saying, oh, well, just because Eric didn't fire the gun doesn't mean that he didn't orchestrate the entire murder. And we said, well, he was charged with murder. That's the entire point. That's why he's still in prison, right? They're firing off to a 21-year-old, 20-year-old, 22-year-olds, all these details. And, to be completely frank, the lawyers are kind of looking at us and we're looking at the lawyers and we're looking at the DAs and we're trying our best to continue the, entire point of why Eric was innocent. But regardless, kind of post that, just the message I think is so important for the class now and for others in this audience that are thinking about taking the class or just getting involved in any kind of level is that it doesn't matter if you're, get to be a lawyer. It doesn't matter if you're in law school. It doesn't matter if you have 20 years of, law experience. Everyone can bring something to the table. One of the biggest things that we did was that petition. It started off as something really small. I think we were one of the first groups to do it. And we essentially just said, we need to get the voice and the message out about Eric's case. And that was obviously huge. So again, as I've said it several times, coming in with no experience, it really didn't matter. Did I think, to be 100% honest, did I think that we were going to be able to get Eric out of prison? I did not. Did I want to? Of course. Of course you get into the class and you want to be successful. But that does not mean that we didn't try, and we gave it 100%. And luckily now we're sitting here several years later and we're able to kind of reminisce on that experience and how it was a success. But just because something seems impossible doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to tackle it and flip that upside down.
Let me say this. For the record, when the students was under that type of pressure, they handled their pressure well. They stood their ground. And, the Conviction Integrity Unit walking into the Philadelphia DA's office as young adults, right? They walked into the den of injustice. That's the pinnacle in Philadelphia of injustice, and they had 8 or 10 DAs, 10 seasoned DAs. When I say seasoned, I'm not saying it in a righteous standpoint, right? And they experienced and they got firsthand experience of the type of defects that's affecting so many lives, so many lives. So that experience is invaluable. And they stood their ground, like the students were saying, the lawyers was looking at them, because again, it was looking at it through a lens of purity. They was going at it from a different spirit. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about politics. It was about human life. So, the scenarios that was the implausible scenarios that was being shot at them that would have got traction with somebody that was tainted by the toxic politics of the defects in the Philadelphia criminal justice system. It didn't affect them. They looking like if he was, well, how about the deceased was upside down? Or if Riddick was in a helicopter shooting down, but all these scenarios, that never got traction with them because they was looking at it through a different lens. And again, that's testimony. The power is truly with us, the people. We have to hold those institutions accountable, whether it's the judicial system, the police department, the universities, it's the people. It's the people. In the beginning of the preamble of the U.S. Constitution, it say, we the people, to form a more perfect union and to establish justice. So anything after that have to reflect those principles. But it's up to the people to make sure that we the watchdogs, so to speak, But I don't want to get long-winded. I get long-winded.
Yeah, we are actually into overtime. We're going to move soon to a Q&A from the audience. So people who want to think of questions, please get ready. But Taylor, I know you wanted to speak. Did you want to say something? And I want to mention, by the way, that Taylor's last name is Riddick, right? So she basically is family, right? And she has an uncle whose name is Eric. So this is her second Uncle Eric.
Yeah, two uncles named
That's
Eric
right.
Riddick.
Very briefly, since we're almost
Yeah,
out of time.
very, very briefly. I think Kendall and Alex really covered that meeting really well, but I just want to highlight one thing that they both alluded to. I think there is a lot of bias in the Philadelphia Conviction Integrity Unit that definitely needs to be unpacked. Sorry, I don't know if this is kosher to talk about, but I mean, they were completely unwilling to consider Eric being completely unrelated to the crime just because of his neighborhood, just because who he was friends with growing up. I think like that alone really speaks to many of the faults that Eric is alluding to and what my teammates have been alluding to with this whole circumstance, with everything that we went through during that time period. The chaos, the messiness, but also just the bias that's present and that we need to unpack.
Yeah. And so my last question to you, very brief, one sentence each. Describe the moment and I'll let you go last, Eric, of walking out of prison, but for the students of seeing Eric and being there when he walked out of prison and being just right there to greet him and with his family to celebrate. Describe that. We'll go down the row, Alex.
One sentence is very tough, as you guys can tell.
that's it.
I'd like to talk. No, I obviously will really quickly say, I frequently talk about, my time at Georgetown, and that was, not only my life, but my experience at Georgetown University was definitely the greatest experience. You work so hard at this college and you put in so much time and effort, and that moment was kind of the culmination of a ton of work. And can't even say it enough. Again, that's one of those things where Eric says there's no words. Truly, there was absolutely no words for that moment. So yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
My favorite moment from the day was when the judge adjourned and Christine had hugged Eric right over like the wall separating the people sitting in the audience and then the judge's area. I think it was just such a heartwarming moment, reflective, like you can have that hug previously, like the past 30 years. And that was like really heartwarming. And I think just shows the effect that the criminal legal system can have, tearing apart families and separating families. And so seeing that connected embrace, yes, you're a free man. I happened to go back to the prison after that hearing. Was such a moving moment to witness.
We also had to wait like over an hour for Eric to be released, which was just incomprehensible. But for me, just unreal and beautiful.
I really don't have no words, but I'm just going to reiterate what I said when I came out. This is just testimony that justice is in season.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, a big round of applause for Team Riddick. And now we're going to get to the Q&A portion of the event. I'm going to ask all of the Team Washington to come up and Marty to join me. And we'll move the chairs and all stand if we can fit.
Before we continue, would Keith's family and Eric's family please stand? Mark and I just want to thank you, because without you, we wouldn't be able to do this work and either with our students. So thank you for that push and fight and everything you did.
And we love you and we consider you family and always will. We have a microphone up here. We have an amazing group of people here ready to answer questions. Please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. My name is Dash. I'm a student not here at Georgetown though, at the University of Maryland. I'm here for two reasons. The first is that I'm a friend of Keith's. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Keith. Only known you a little while, but I'm here to support him. And the second reason is I'm no Meek Mill, but I also have a friend who's been wrongfully incarcerated for 34 years. And his name is Kenny Collins. He's in Maryland. It was a wrong identity case. He wasn't involved at all. It's been something that the Free Kenny Collins campaign has been going on for literally since he went in. And it's been difficult just to feel like we're spinning our wheels and not making progress and he's not home. And so I won't get into all the details like here. I mean, I don't want to.
So please send us the info.
Yeah, but I would love to send you the info. And then I guess just in terms of a question for the panel, it would be in terms of what was actually like successful in bringing these two men home, because that's what we're trying to do for Kenny. Like to what extent was it the public opinion part with like the petition and the documentary? To what extent was it really like just the legal fight? Because yeah, I'm just trying to just trying to
No,
do
we
exactly
understand.
what you've done.
Yeah, that's a great question. Does anyone want to take that on, or do we want to take a few questions?
I'll say very quickly and then I'll let the students answer. Every case is different.
Yeah.
Every case is different. Every state is different. Every jurisdiction is different because in some jurisdictions, the time period to file post-conviction is very, very small, which creates a problem.
Okay. Oh, hello. Okay, this one's working better, I think. Just to quickly add to that, everything's different, but just one thing to note from Eric Riddick's case was that when we first went to the conviction integrity unit, they were only considering cases of absolute innocence. And so that basically was impossible to prove. But at the time of Eric's release, they began to review cases of wrongful convictions. And so once they extended their scope of work, they were able to actually consider Eric's case a lot more seriously. So I'm not sure of the specifics in that case, but that was one thing that was important in Eric's case.
Yeah. So again, every case is different, but Stacy actually said it best when we were talking before this event. She felt that just the documentary and our work added a sense of legitimacy. So previously it was only Stacy, family, and the lawyers working on something. So when you bring in a third party, who has a bit of a proven track record on this to say, hey, you should be looking at this, that adds something. And again, like Mark mentioned before, the judge and the lawyer that was brought on to take a second look at Keith's case both mentioned, Georgetown and the documentary. So I think just adding that sense of legitimacy, it was helpful for us.
And we look forward to hearing about the case. I should also mention that since the success that we've had, we have now get hundreds, and I mean hundreds of cases that are proposed to us. Every time I check my mailbox, there's more letters from prison. We have an epidemic of wrongful convictions in this country. Our criminal justice system fails day after day after day. And so while we're celebrating these two success stories, and of course I celebrate every day my friend Marty's success story, we have to remember that there are countless people, and we'll never know their names, who are suffering in prison today for crimes they didn't commit or for unjust sentences. And we have a absolutely punitive system where justice has nothing to do with reality. So I just want to acknowledge that and mention that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Jennifer, and I just wanted to ask and to follow up on that point.
Listen, I met so many people in prison who were either unjustly incarcerated or had these draconian sentences, right? And in America, you have 50 states, but in those 50 states, there are over 3,000 counties. Maryland is a relatively small state. There's only 23 counties in the state of Maryland. Texas has 252 counties. Each county courthouse, that judge, that prosecutor, they're determining people's trajectory in life, whether they're going to die in prison, whether they're going to be eligible for parole, whether they're innocent, whether they're guilty, whether the facts fit the crime, or whether it doesn't. There are different variables. I can say with certainty that approximately, if we just take 1%, there's over 3 million people incarcerated in America. If we take 1%, that's 30,000. So if you just use statistics and probabilities, that's about 30,000 people who are wrongfully and unjustly incarcerated, and some have even received the death penalty. And their families, like our families, have suffered tremendously. And they, if you use statistics and probabilities, will never see their day of freedom or in court. There are people who don't have access to institutions like Georgetown, right? Who can fight on their behalf. There are people who don't have money. There are people who don't have proper representation. There are people who are languishing there, who've lost their mind. I lived in an 8-foot by 10-foot iron cage for 14 years. Think about that. Every morning I woke up, I had to be mentally tough to say that my freedom is near. Whether I believed it or not, I had to convince myself of that. We had 6 or 7 motions before the court that were turned down without a hearing. So I never had an opportunity to prove my innocence along the way, right? Now, I was fortunate enough to pay for a lawyer, even though that money, went for naught. Other people who don't have resources, they don't have lawyers. And as in Eric's case, there's a time constraint that if you miss a 30-day window or 60-day window to file your motion, then no matter if you're innocent or not, the court won't hear your motion. And so we have a lot of work to do, ladies and gentlemen, as it relates to criminal justice reform. There's over 3,000 different counties, over 3,000 different courthouses where these cases are adjudicated and people are languishing and people have unfortunately died. So I don't want to be, I just want to give you the facts and what reality is. Now I'm gonna let you take it. Go ahead.
I'm gonna be quick, but let me see this. In Philadelphia, the dissatisfaction of the people produced a very progressive district attorney, right, named Larry Krasner. When he came into office, after he looked over the situation, he declared that thousands of convictions came out of a culture of corruption, where the district attorney's office, the courts, and the police department was complicit. So when you have a culture of corruption going on for 20 and 30 years, you do the math on that. One other thing is the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. When we seen the DNA technology, maybe like 20 years ago, we seen thousands of exonerations based on DNA evidence. It's only 8% cases in all the convictions that have DNA evidence. So if you had thousands that was exonerated from DNA, just think about the 92% convictions, how many wrongful convictions lie in that 92% that don't have DNA evidence. But just think about that as a culture of corruption that produced many of these convictions. So it's thousands.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Peter, and I was wondering, from a macro perspective in the criminal justice system, what are the biggest opportunities to reduce the number of people and the duration that people are wrongfully convicted for?
Did you say the biggest obstacles?
Yeah, what are the best ways to reduce both the number of people who are wrongfully convicted and the duration for which people are wrongfully convicted in the whole system?
Listen, the state legislatures in each state need to pass laws that cover 2 or 3 different subjects. One, the sentencing integrity laws, right? Where you have people getting, in my case, a 45-year sentence for involuntary manslaughter in my own home. You have people convicted of first-degree murder who don't get a 45-year sentence. And so the judge subjectively gives me a 45-year sentence, which is a death sentence, right? Which is a death sentence in your own home, right? Now, when the legislatures pass these laws, there needs to be some type of oversight of the judicial branch. We have 3 branches: executive, legislative, judicial, you know that. But the judicial branch is unchecked. They have wide latitude in how much and how far they want to go with individual cases in over 3,000 different courtrooms. Courthouses. In those courthouses, there may be as many as 50 different courtrooms, depending on how big that county is. And so now, to reduce injustices, there needs to be particular bills put forth that allows people to come back and get DNA testing. There are some states that don't allow DNA testing. There's some judges that deny motions on DNA testing routinely, that you can't prove your innocence unless you get into a courtroom, even if you're falsely convicted, right? Because a lot of people have been falsely convicted. And then they say, hey, wait a minute. You know, if you do a DNA test on this evidence, it'll prove that I'm not that guy. And so they routinely deny that motion. We won't give you DNA testing. In fact, it happened in my case. That's one of the hearings that I was denied, a DNA hearing. And so science will give you the answer. Period. Science doesn't lie, but people do. Science doesn't lie. And so when people won't give you a scientific remedy, what do? You know? And so I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to petition these legislatures to pass laws that allow people their day in court if they are innocent, because DNA will prove you did it or you didn't do it. That's what we're trying to get at, the truth. That's what justice is about, supposedly, the truth and the facts and the evidence. And so when people stand in the way of that, because they don't want the truth or the facts or the evidence to come to light. And so for men like myself and Eric, we're fortunate that we were able to have our day in court. We were able to get the assistance of a great university and great students and great people, right? Who fought alongside of us and sometimes in the front of us. That is what freed me in my case, because my wife and I, we fought for 12 years tooth and nail to show the evidence. And when Georgetown got involved, then people kind of stepped back and said, well, let's see it. And when you saw it, it was irrefutable.
I want to make sure we have time for some more questions, but Peter, I'll just say, if you want my answer, take my class. We'll spend a whole semester figuring that out.
All right, thank you.
Oh, you want to say something, Ken? Really briefly, as the next person comes down.
I think also I just suggest to put on the table like abolition as well as I believe in abolition as a practice and theory from working with Eric, other incarcerated people. I was in a course before making Exoneree. It took place at DC jail, and many of those individuals have gotten out or sitting over here in this section over here. And so I think the criminal legal system is proven and able to like fully rehabilitate people, address the harm that causes crime or that results from crime. So I think that's something that we should all be viably considering. Because even on the flip side of innocence, there are people who are incarcerated that shouldn't be subject to the treatment that they are subject to in prisons and jails, and that they get from prosecutors and judges and stuff like that. And so I think the system is far beyond being able to reform or change. And so that's something we should all be considering and committing to in our own practice in our lives.
Thank you. Yeah. Please.
Good evening. Good evening. Greg Boyer. Please excuse my attire. I'm just coming from work. My mom introduced me to what's going on here today. My question is to the students and the professors. Which route would you suggest for a person to take? Because my father, he's actually sitting in jail now, wrongfully convicted, and illegally, he's sitting in jail. But my question is, what route would you suggest a person takes? We've been fighting for 3 years, and every lawyer that we speak to tell us it's illegal, he's wrongfully convicted, but it's a conflict of interest and they won't take the case. So what route should we take, or which way should we go? Because it seems like everyone sees the wrong, but no one's willing to expose the wrong.
So I can tell you, sometimes you have to go out of the jurisdiction. In my case, most of my appellate lawyers were not from New York, they were from Washington, DC. So I knew there wasn't going to be a conflict. You really have to figure out, what is the conflict? Is it a true conflict of interest? Are they related to somebody? Have they worked with somebody? And sometimes what you can also do is go to the bigger firms. Sometimes you gotta find the biggest firms and the biggest jurisdictions. They all have pro bono departments, and they're also legal clinics. Almost every law school in America now has some type of post-conviction legal clinic or innocence clinic that you can reach out to. You could probably reach out to Mark or I individually, and we could probably guide you, because I don't know what jurisdiction you're in or what the conflict is. So I would say reach out to us and we'll try to guide you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. And just to answer your question quickly, before, ineffective assistance of counsel, prosecutorial accountability, and law enforcement accountability are 3 things that we could address.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be here with all of you. I took Professor Howard's class, Prisons and Punishment, in the fall of my senior year. And I was good friends with Taylor and Kendall, so I saw that much of this work is really a labor of love. So I appreciate all of you and the work of the family for what you're doing, and it's really inspiring. There's a quote by Mariam Kaba, who's a prison abolitionist, where she says that belief in Allah is practicing hope as a discipline. So I'm curious to know how spirituality, in whatever way that you engage with it, how faith was a part of your experience while incarcerated, when returning, and for the students involved, or for both professors, how it may inform this justice work that you're also involved in. Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. I believe that faith, faith is definitely essential when you're under those type of circumstances. Faith is attached to vision. You have to be able to see beyond where you are at, where you're currently at. And you have to be able to, faith is to still have hope that the outcome that you praying for is going to come, but faith without work is dead. That's the other component to faith. Faith is like fuel. Again, when you're in those situations that look like it's not going to come to an end, you have to have some level of faith, some level of spirituality to be able to see beyond your current circumstance. So yeah, definitely it's very important and essential, definitely.
I think for Mark and I, we have faith in our students are doing a great job.
We sure do.
What sustained me was love, right? The love for my wife and the love for my family. What sustained me was the love for freedom. That I was going to be a free man or I was going to die trying, right? That there's no amount of fear or trepidation in my heart when it came to things that I cared about and things that I wanted for my family, right? That I knew we could win. I knew it, and my angels came. My angels came, right? Now, for a lot of people, you need more than that. You need resources. You need other people to be committed. You need other people to be willing to take a stand and fight for what they believe if it coincides with your belief system, right? Because as a team, as an individual, I can fight all my life. You can fight all your life and never win, never gain ground. But collectively, we could win. There's nothing we can't do. There's nothing you can't do. There's nothing together you can't do. And if you believe something is unjust, ladies and gentlemen, you have a duty to do something, to say something, because it's only unjust because you don't take a position on it. It only lives because you won't kill it. It only thrives because you won't suck the life out of it before it sucks the life out of you. You can win in anything you do in life, anything you do. And you can definitely win collectively. People need help, not help where they're just saying, hey, I can't help myself. But if you see people fighting for a cause, that may be what inspires you to say, you know what, today I'm going to get my hands dirty. I'm going to get into battle. I'm going to make sure this outcome is what it should be. And tonight when I go to sleep, or in my life when I go to my grave, I knew I made a difference in somebody's life. Do that. Trust me, your life will be better for it. Make us proud. I always say that, make us proud. And that's what I say, listen, the world didn't start with the year you were born, or I was born, or, Eric was born, and it won't end when we pass away. But what will live is the ideals that you pass on. The ideals of fairness, the ideals of justice, the ideals of equality, the ideals of being committed to a cause bigger than yourself. Do that, and you will find how your life will be enriched. That's what I found in my life, no matter what I've experienced. Fight for something bigger than yourself. And these people have done it.
They have.
I just want to quickly say, I know some of the questions have been aimed towards, obviously, the two men up here were lucky enough to have a team behind them. And we were lucky enough to be a part of that team. But kind of the moral of the story there is that there is no reason why others who don't have the resources that Keith or Eric have cannot tell their story. I think the biggest push that we saw was social media. Whether that's through the petition, the documentary, in both cases, there's no reason why someone's story cannot be told. And I think that in a lot of cases, when you tell a story that you're passionate about, or you tell the story of someone who's wrongfully convicted and you get people to listen, a lot of change can come from that way. And I think like in the modern age of social media and our ability to reach thousands of people kind of allows that. So just because you don't have the ability to hire a team of lawyers or get Georgetown's attention or in other ways doesn't mean that your story can't be heard.
I'm sorry, I know we're late. No, just because
She flew from France, so she gets.
Okay. So yeah, what Marty just said before, I mean, it was a joke, but still, I think that I don't know a lot about faith, but I think that you have to believe in yourself and also find the right people to work with. So I had faith in our team, and it's a very long road. Okay, you're gonna feel very down and sad and excited and mad and happy and a lot. So you need to find the right people to be there to believe in you, and even when you don't believe in yourself. I think that to me that was a key.
So unfortunately, we're well over time here, into overtime. I'm getting a lot of dirty looks from my team here. But I just want to say, and I speak for Marty here too, that for our students, we are so unbelievably proud of you. And to the other students who are here, who are hoping to have this moment too, the work you do is so extraordinary, so inspiring. You give so much of yourselves. This is not a task. This is not an assignment. This is life, right? And so here we see the product of that. And then to Eric and to Keith, I know this has been a lot about you thanking us and thanking the students, but we want to thank you. You're the ones who endured, and I add Marty into this category too for what he went through. You're the ones who endured that suffering day after day, and you're the ones who inspire us. And through our connection has created something that is so beautiful, that gives us life, that gives us beauty and joy and meaning that unfortunately many people in the world lack. And you give that to us, and you are just a part of us and a part of Georgetown. And we're just so appreciative of you and so grateful to be together here and forever. Yeah.